Thank you, Paul. How's everybody doing? Welcome. So I like going after Britt, and as I sit and listen to him, he's a tough act to follow. He's got a lot of detail, and I'm going to talk a little bit big picture. So my name is David Marsden. I'm a local realtor with the Bean Group. I help people buy and sell single-family homes, 2 to 4 unit multis, and condominiums. What's a little different in my world is we deal with a lot of counseling and a lot of emotion. A little bit to start off, I'm going to give you a brief introduction here. Whoa, hey, there we go. So let's get started. Quick outline of what I'm going to talk about here. We're going to do a 5-year perspective. I'll give you the details of the numbers of 2016. We're going to talk about some demographic trends as I shift, kind of look at big picture, and then I'll close with my predictions for 2017 and beyond. So, brief explanation of my slides. If you look on the left, I'm giving you a historical perspective of the last 5 years. And on the right, a month-to-month comparison of what happened in 2016. I'll talk about the state of Maine, and then we'll specifically address Cumberland County. So, number of sales, volume. We see an increase to about 19,500 sales, about 1,800 more sales than we saw in 2015. Look at this slide on the right, typical of seasonality in the residential market. Winter, slow, less transactions, and our activity peaked in midsummer. Cumberland County, small uptick from the year prior, only about 100 more units closed. But the big data point to reference in this slide is 1 in 4 transactions happened in Cumberland County. So 25% of all the sales in the state of Maine happened right here in Cumberland County. So how did this translate to price? We see in the last 5 years an increase in median price throughout the state. This year, we landed at $189 for median price, about a 5% increase from the previous year. And look at the seasonality, the median price stays fairly consistent across the board in 2016. In Cumberland County, we're hearing about it all day. You know, a low inventory, we're all chasing minimal homes. We saw a 12% increase in the median price. Median price landed about $260, but in midsummer it actually jumped to about $275,000. So strong increase in median price. Britt touched on days on market. I look at this as sort of absorption, but also demand in the market. So on a state level, again, we saw a reduction in median price down to about 52 days on the market. And again, seasonality is affected, as you would imagine. Look in the summer, those are our peak selling times, so least amount of days on the market. Cumberland County, same thing, 21 days on the market. That's pretty amazing. And in May, we sort of peaked out at 12 days on the market. So a quick translation of all this data we're looking at. So in May, imagine in Cumberland County, there's 550 residential transactions happening with an average of 12 days on the market. So you're a buyer's agent, you got to hustle, you got to educate your clients, and you better be ready to write an offer if you find a home that they like. On the listing side, Britt alluded to this, you better prep, stage your home, have it ready for the market, get your marketing dialed, and make sure your seller has a plan, because they're moving. So those of you that live in Cumberland County or Greater Portland, here's the median price in surrounding communities from Cape to Yarmouth. The dark blue line that you're looking at was 2015. The light blue line is 2016. So across the board, we're seeing an increase in median price. Now, every neighborhood's different. So I know you're going to say, David, what's my house worth? So that depends. So happy to talk to anybody about that. But Westbrook in particular, we saw a large increase, as well as Yarmouth. Don't be fooled by the Cape Elizabeth numbers. The median price in 2014 was actually $410, so you got to look at the bigger picture to understand the value. What other factors contribute to increase in price? Rates. We've been talking about it. Last year at this time, I stood up here and rates were hovering about 4.4%. This is a 30-year conventional loan, typical for residential. National Association of Realtors predicted a 4.8% average interest rate for 2016. They were dead wrong, dead wrong. In fact, early May, rates dropped to 3.5%, and they held steady throughout the summer until just right after the election, where they spiked to about 4.5% and then dropped back down. They've settled about 4.25%. So rates played a big role. Inventory, you've heard it before. It's a simple supply and demand economics. When supply declines, demand increases, price goes up. Quick story. Chasing the market. Sometimes, Britt alluded to this, sometimes we're all looking at that. So a client bought a condo about 6, 7 years ago, transitional area of the West End, paid $200,000. Came to me, it's ready to sell this year in early May, and I thought, you know, I think we could push this. We came to market at $269.9, like $270. I'm thinking, all right, let's see where the market is. Within 5 days, we had 9 offers. 9. I'm like, oh, geez, did I miss the market? Well, we had 3 cash offers, minimal contingencies. We made a bet on the highest offer, which was a single person, first-time home buyer. That condo closed at $296,000, almost 30 grand over the asking price. Timing, market, low rates all help fuel that. Mortgages, that also helped it. We bet on this young buyer because they had a good job and they were hooked up with a good local bank. So last year we saw just a new sort of rollout of government regulations in the mortgage industry, more paperwork, new settlement statements, 3-day disclosure rules. So the bottom line is it's backing off. We're all getting used to that. It's getting easier. We're seeing a 30 to 45-day close process, so it's good. And I think in retrospect, we sort of had this perfect storm of ease of lending regulations, low interest rates, minimal supply, and then boom, huge increase in short-term price. Condos. I could spend an hour detailing our current condo market. We've seen a lot of projects in the last few years come online, a few come online this year, and a few in the pipeline. I sell a lot of condos, and I'm fascinated by this market, and I love to dig into the details. But I thought I'd go big picture with you. There were 972 residential sales in Portland last year. Not multis, just single-family home and condos. 345 of those, or 35%, were condos. So a major piece of our market. 270 of those units, of the 345, were actually sold for less than 400 grand. So the press, there's a lot of publicity about the higher end condo market. I've participated in it. I think it's a good market. There is definitely a demographic asking for it, but we're seeing the majority of our sales at 400 or less. So it'll be interesting to see how that condo market unfolds in the near future. Quickly shift. I'm going to talk about some demographics. I'm going to go bigger picture. I think this is important. We in our lifestyles have different buying needs and wants, and I think that's reflected in the demographics. And there's 4 different types. Let's take a quick look. Millennials, they are the youngest demographic. We've heard a lot about them. What's interesting is they're coming into their own. They are now outpacing the boomers as far as the largest demographic group. They're saddled with significant consumer debt from their loans and school loans. And they're going after single-family condos, a little bit smaller home sizes. But what's interesting for me in that counseling piece is they're coupled up often, like married couples or just committed couples. So I often have two decision makers that I need to work with, listen to, and bring together. Gen Xers. This group, they're in their peak earning years, median age is about 42, and they're generally upsizing in their home purchases. And on a national basis, the average is about 2,600 square feet, so not too big of a house. I call them the middle child, you know, sort of wedged between the boomers and the millennials. Boomers, still a huge piece of our market. They're still fueling the downtown condo market, but now we're breaking them into two groups. We have younger boomers, median age is 56, and I get asked, David, what can we do for multi-generational homes? So I'll talk about that in a moment. So each group has different needs. Older boomers, median age is 65, and they're true downsizers. These are your classic downsizers, selling the family home, often moving long distances to be closer to family and friends, not necessarily staying where they made their professional careers. So two groups of boomers. The last, fourth generation is an older demographic. We're seeing a huge increase in senior-related housing. That trend's going to continue. I don't see that changing. And curiously enough, according to NAR, National Association of Realtors, they like new homes, they're looking at smaller homes, and they're the least likely to compromise. Think they've earned that? Yeah, I do too. So 4 distinct groups, different needs, classic as we go through our life cycles. I think that's fueling different areas of our market. Other trends, things going on in the background that I think are influencing people when they come and talk to me as buyers and sellers. You guys, you watch HGTV? Stop! You're killing me. It's twisting your brain. You can't rip out a kitchen in a weekend and replace it. Unless you're a contractor, you don't have the skills, and it's just going to be a mess. And you better pull a permit also. It's fantasy TV. It's great to watch, but please, take it with a grain of salt. Multi-generational housing. This is real. This is, I see, for a variety of reasons, and I think we'll see more and more of this coming down the pipeline. Number one, cost savings. 2, adult kids moving back from school. You guys have kids coming back from college? Don't let them move in. And lastly, just we as caretakers for our parents and the older generation, or just simply wanting to spend time with them as they age. I see some municipalities loosening those restrictions on in-law, and I think this is a real draw in the years ahead. Tiny home movement. You guys familiar with this? So I think this is a representation of what's pushing the envelope in housing. So it's a very passionate, creative group of people. We have a local movement here in Maine. We also have a national movement. Did any of you hear about the guy down in Bayside that put 2 tiny homes on his lot, hooked them up to water and sewer, and had one already tenanted up and ready to go? City shut them down. In fact, Portland now has specific code and guidelines for a tiny house. The big difference that I'm seeing is often these are built on flatbeds with wheels, so cities look at them as RVs. Cape Elizabeth had issue with this. I think Richmond is the one community in the area that will allow this, but if you put it on a foundation, it's good, but if it's on wheels, it's an RV. So I'm using this as an example really to show a manifestation of the change in attitude and some of the change in residential housing. People want to be more mobile, they want to simplify their lives, and they're willing to live in smaller space. We're seeing that in the condos, and I think the tiny house movement is very real and extends beyond into our market. Other creative housing going on. We're seeing Shipping containers, great example of repurposing of materials. I don't know if you've been down to Thompson's Point or over to the Maine State Pier, but they're using them as offices, VIP, and sort of just changing rooms. I think it's a great idea. There's a company up in Brewer that will help you acquire and then retrofit a shipping container. And Jed Harris, local entrepreneur and developer, has a plan in the pipeline to put 5 of these containers up on Washington Ave by the Nissan Baker building. I applaud him for thinking outside the box, jumping on to this idea that's happening around the country. Jed tells me that his will be retail, one stacked on top of the other, and I think it's a great solution short term until there's a larger, perhaps, idea that comes into play. So, we've talked about the numbers, we went big picture, talked about a little demographic, and some other trends that I see in the residential market happening. So, I don't know if you saw, but I asked Paul to come up here because this is real. I have an edge over all the other people in this room. So those of you that saw me last year, this is my magic crystal ball. Can you see it? So during the holidays when I was doing my research, I pulled this thing out. I set it right down, and I was like, all right, what's going to happen? So for 2017, my prediction is rates will continue to rise, but fall just under the 5%. I think it's going to soften the momentum just a bit, but it will still be a very strong market, and rates won't play a significant role. Median house price, we saw that 12% increase in the median home price in Cumberland County. I think we've got momentum, and it's going to continue, but I believe it's going to cool just a hair. So about 2 to 4% increase in the median home. Bigger homes, tougher sell. I'm particularly talking about home stock built kind of mid-'80s to the late '90s. Not great durable materials in the construction business, 4 to 6 bedroom, 2-car garage. The Gen Xers don't want it. Millennials don't want to heat it, clean it. I think that's going to be a harder sell in the years ahead. So if you have one of those homes, might be a good time to get out. Price it well. We've talked a lot about infill and those demand for the urban amenities. That's spilling over to the suburbs. People want livable, walkable neighborhoods. Think Willard Beach in South Portland. Think Deering Center. I have clients that say, David, that's where I want to be. I want to go to the coffee shop. I want to go to the bakery. I want to take the family to the local restaurant. So I foresee better zoning and increased sort of diverse, in basically mixed use happening in traditional neighborhoods. I talked about this last year. I see a slight decrease in the luxury market coming up, specifically between about 700 and 1.5 million. And there will always be a luxury market, no doubt. What I'm seeing is more the aspect of mobility and capital. So if you've got a bag of $1 million, might you have a house here and a house there and allow just to enjoy the lifestyle that both allow rather than putting all your eggs in one basket? That's really what I'm talking about in this slide. And lastly, we're seeing a rise. This is for the residential people out there. I don't know. I know we're the minority in the room here, but I'm seeing a rise of the team structure in the residential world. It's the solo agent. You just physically can't keep up with the demand, the texts, the phone calls, the late nights, the emails. We work nights. We work weekends. I'm all for it. But to service your clients, we need to have a team approach so that you can have somewhat of a balance and be more effective. I may not be the best marketer, so I need help. So The team structure for residential brokers is on the rise, and I think will continue. With that, I appreciate the opportunity. I wish you all the best for 2017. Thank you.